we're back. Hopefully, this sounds much better. I know I keep having audio issues. I'm so sorry. But hopefully we're fixing that, and it actually sounds good now. Let me just make sure. Just don't want to overpower it. Hold on. Oh crap! What the hell just happened? Alright, then that should be good. Okay. Sorry, just making sure everything. Like I'm like paranoid now because of this. Every single time I check my videos, it's like the audio is like so bad. I'm so sorry, but anyways.
Now the Chinese
And this
Coast Guard
literally
lifted
just came out like 20 minutes ago, so hopefully we're one of the first to, cover this. Not cover it, but Alright, let's do
over a
this. Go ahead.
disputed reef near a major Philippine military outpost in the South China Sea. The move adding to long-standing territorial tensions with the Philippines.
President Ferdinand Marcos Jr.'s government continues to expand the country's defense ties amid Chinese growing aggression in the region.
A military exercise has caught the attention of China. Warships and fighter jets have been buzzing the waters of the West Philippine Sea.
The Philippines
now
is
we're in the
currently on
Philippines.
high alert for a war
Now
against
we're
China.
attacking the Philippines.
In
So we're
recent
not
months,
where,
even,
but
tensions
now
between the
China's
Philippines and China have been
trying to sink their
skyrocketing.
grubby little fingers
From
in
small
the Philippines
skirmishes
as well.
and collisions in disputed islands and territories to increasingly aggressive Chinese threats. The region
Aggressive
is
negotiations.
boiling for war. In response, the Philippines is seeing more and more U.S. troops landing on its shores. Missiles are being tested, and the Filipinos are increasing military exercises with their American partners. The island nation is preparing for
too.
war.
I
You
would
see,
too,
as recently as
honestly.
March of 2025, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth visited Manila. He met with President Marcos and his counterpart, Gilberto Teodoro. Their meeting was to discuss future military deterrence
Gilberto.
efforts across the Indo-Pacific region. In this meeting, the leaders also discussed a
boy
plan to build up
Gilberto.
on and expand financial commitments. One of these being a July 2024 $500 million U.S. commitment to help modernize the Philippine military. The agreement will also see the Americans deploy more advanced military infrastructure. That infrastructure included the sale of 20 F-16 fighter jets worth $5.58 billion. This new package also features new advanced guided missile launchers, anti-craft guns, sniper advanced targeting pods, and radio systems. It also creates a plan for bilateral training between both countries. It even launched a bilateral cyber defense campaign. In addition, the DoD also committed the Nemesis system for this year's exercise Balikatan. You see, this annual exercise is the most...
Isn't that what the Witcher thing is called or whatever? Shadow of Mordor? The Nemesis system? Isn't that like copyrighted?
important military exercise between the US and the Philippines. Nemesis stands for Navy Marine Expeditionary Ship Interdiction System. One of the newest
cool
toys in
acronyms.
the arsenal, the
Cool,
Nemesis
cool.
is a high-tech weapons platform. It can carry powerful anti-ship
sahur.
missiles combined with a lightweight armored vehicle. Crucially, it can be operated remotely, which reduces risk to troops. And it can be quickly moved between different
cool-ass
places.
looking
Finally, it is
vehicles,
designed to
wow.
strike enemy ships from land. This creates the perfect environment for attacking China from the Philippine Islands in a war. Hegseth's visit and increased cooperation of late
Yeah, but
shows
then that
signs of a
also
stronger
kind of
partnership.
makes Philippines like a target, though, wouldn't it? I feel like that's kind of like inciting war to them because then now all those nations are gonna like kind of like target the Philippines and such. At least that's what I would imagine.
And this partnership has shown to be readier than ever to counter Chinese aggression. A nation known for its pristine tropical islands and white sandy beaches and crystalline waters, the Philippines is entering a very dangerous and turbulent era. You see, besides having all of these enviable attributes, the Philippines is also in the middle of the South China Sea. And in the 21st century geopolitical era, that means conflict with China. Beyond the luxurious resorts along the beach, we are seeing a huge flare-up of military activity. U.S. troops are conducting more and more drills. Official high-level visits are increasing, and the Philippine armed forces are gearing up to face their giant northern neighbors' growing ambitions. But why is this happening now? As the Philippines races towards first world status, new technologies such as artificial intelligence are going to play an important role. But it's
Racing
not just
towards
about the
first
Philippines.
world? I don't know.
AI is reshaping
I haven't
how we
really heard
humans
that
work and live around the
being
world.
in the top.
And if you still don't learn and integrate AI in your work, trust me, you will be left far
Yeah, but
behind.
then again,
in the race.
I probably
And
just don't know
maybe be
anything.
replaced soon by someone who knows how to use
Just
it.
ignorant.
This is why I highly recommend Outskill. They are doing a 2-day AI training happening
God,
this
is it
weekend,
really an
which
ad?
takes you from beginning to 5. The link is to 7 p.m. Eastern platform. Live really helpful prompt engineering, AI in AI in your work, sales, 120 yours now.
My
To the training has steadily increased Friday at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. don't miss out.
I'm
For
gonna
many
miss
decades,
out.
China has steadily increased its assertiveness in the South China Sea. It has consistently claimed full sovereignty of the body of water.
They're
This has
sovereign
inevitably
citizens?
caused tensions with its Southeast Asian neighbors, the Philippines included. China wants to dominate this region, not only for economic but geopolitical reasons. You see, the South China Sea has an estimated 11 billion barrels of untapped oil reserves. It also has about 190 trillion cubic feet of natural gas. These make
Whoa, 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 whoa!
oil reserves. It also has about 190 trillion cubic
South China Sea is underexplored because of territorial. South China Sea is underexplored because South territory. Yeah, so basically we would know a lot more about Earth if we weren't fighting with each other so much. Long story short, the territorial disputes, most discovered oil and natural gas fields are in uncontested areas. Contested. Close to the shorelines, approximately barrels of petroleum and other natural gas provided for South China Sea reservoirs provided. Oh, sure, Indonesia. Natural gas provided in portable reserves, trillion cubic feet. One. Holy crap. Malaysia. Jeez. Brunei. What's Brunei? I've never heard of Brunei. China. Vietnam.
feet of natural gas. These make the sea a giant reserve of these key resources. China, in its goal to become the dominant political player of the region, wants the largest piece of this pie. And it's not afraid to use historical claims to justify current ambitions. In that goal, China has antagonized not only the Philippines, but also other neighboring
They're
countries.
basically
You see,
antagonizing
countries
like the whole world,
Indonesia,
honestly, in my
Brunei,
opinion.
Malaysia, Taiwan, and Vietnam also have a claim in the South China Sea. Starting in the 1970s, China began claiming and seizing various islands along the sea. These include the Spratly Islands. They are an archipelago, rich in natural resources and valuable fishing zones. Many of these islands and areas of the sea are
Spratly
dangerously
Islands.
close to or even crossing into other countries' exclusive economic zones. This has caused ongoing disputes. To this day, many of these disputes have not been resolved,
Yeah, the man-made
diplomatically,
islands right there.
sparking the risk of war. Despite China's
That right
claims
there.
for no foreign intervention within its EEZ, the UN Convention of the Law of the Sea begs to differ. The UNCLOS provides freedom of navigation to the EEZs at sea. In 2016, the International Court of Justice ruled in favor of the Philippines against China regarding their SCS disputes. Disregarding international law, China has tried to increase its land grabs in the South China Sea. They've
Of course they
expanded
have.
existing islands to build infrastructure. And not only that, but they've also created new ones altogether. Beijing has built ports, military bases, and airstrips along these expanded and artificial islands,
Yeah, it's
more
literally just a
particularly in the
military base.
Paracel and Spratly Islands. These islands are also claimed by Taiwan, the Philippines, Vietnam, and others, by the way. These actions are in violation of the Law of the Sea's freedom of navigation. And here's the deal. Disruptions like these will severely disrupt trade along the SCS economic corridor.
Yeah,
For
and
that
then
reason, the
China's
US has
wondering
responded
why their
swiftly.
economy is, like,
They've
going
increased
down the
their own
drain.
freedom of navigation
Well,
activities
these companies
along
are
the
leaving
sea.
China
And they've
because
also
it's
increased their
problematic.
support to other regional allies. This is where we need to talk about the US-Philippines relationship too. The United States and the Philippines have a very special yet complex relationship. Starting in 1898 with the Philippine Revolution against Spanish colonial rule. During that conflict, the US decisively intervened against the Spaniards. In the ensuing Spanish-American War, the US triumphed and purchased the Philippine territories from Spain. This marked a very tumultuous start to this relationship. Right away, the Filipinos waged war for independence against the Americans. The Filipinos lost this war, however. After suffering this loss, the islands remained under American rule until 1946, following World War II. During the war, the Filipinos were conquered by the Japanese Empire. In response, they aligned with the US to resist the occupation. Following this alliance and the devastation of the war, the Philippines gained full independence in 1946. The relationship remained somewhat frisky throughout the Cold War, however. You see, this was mostly due to the lack of significant US support to develop the Philippine economy. This was made even worse after the Americans gave more support to other Eastern and Southeastern Asians like Japan and South Vietnam. Despite this, however, the Philippines continued to support American efforts during the Cold War. Both countries signed the Mutual Defense Treaty in 1951. This treaty committed both parties to defend each other
What we
if
covered in
either
the
one
last
was ever
video.
attacked. And here's the deal. This agreement sets an important precedent as tensions with China continue to escalate. Should the US or the Philippines be attacked by China, they would have to support and defend their partner. Since then, both countries have increased military cooperation. Filipino troops fought against the communists during the Korean War of 1950 to 1953. And during this era, the US supported the dictatorship of Ferdinand Marcos. Why, you may ask? You see, Marcos was known for his anti-communist policies. Crucially, he also allowed the US to keep its existing military bases, such as the Clark Air Base and the Subic Bay
So we
Naval
gained
Base.
something from
These
it,
bases were also
basically.
crucial to the American war effort in Vietnam during the late 1960s and the early 1970s. 1970s. The Marcos regime also suppressed Muslim and communist uprisings with American support. In exchange for these collaborations, the US provided political support for Marcos. This support from a major superpower helped solidify his regime. Throughout the regime, however, the size and number of US bases in the Philippines were slowly reduced. By 1979, their ownership formally passed to the Philippine government. President Marcos was removed from office in 1986, ending his brutal
Marcos
dictatorship.
from Tripolia.
After that, the Philippines shifted towards democracy under President Corazon Aquino. Eventually, in the early 90s, the Philippine Senate voted
Corazon.
not to renew the Americans' lease on these bases. For that reason, in 1992, U.S. forces were pulled. However, military cooperation never completely stopped. In 1999, the U.S. and the Philippines ratified the Visiting Forces Agreement, or the VFA, under the existing Mutual Defense Treaty. You see, this new agreement, among other provisions, allows U.S. military
The
visa-free
1,000
entry into
provisions?
the Philippines. It also permits U.S. troops to conduct joint military drills alongside Filipino troops. Throughout this time, the U.S. has increased its economic support for the Philippines while maintaining security ties. Another key event during this time was the 1996 Declaration of American Friendship Day by President Fidel Valdez Ramos.
What the hell is
It was
that?
also commemorating
The
the
Declaration of American Friendship Day? Is that for real? What the fuck? What is that actually? What? That's pretty cool. What the hell? How come other countries like us more than we like ourselves? Like,
the 50th anniversary of the Philippines' Independence Day. President Gloria Macapagal Arroyo was not just a diplomatic ally to the US, however. Specifically, after the 9/11 attacks, the Philippines became an even larger ally. President Arroyo staunchly supported US President George W. Bush's ensuing war on terror. By 2003, the US had already considered the Philippines as a major non-NATO ally. You see, this is a critical designation. Not only is it symbolic, but it's also a threat to Chinese influence in the region. In 2014, both countries signed the Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agreement, or EDCA. This was yet another move that brought both partners closer together. This new agreement gives US troops access to Philippine bases. It also allows them to conduct rotating drills and stays for longer time periods. After all of these positive developments in the relationship came Rodrigo Duterte. You see, as soon as he took office in June of 2016, he began distancing Manila from Washington. Relations between the two countries began to sour, from creating closer ties with Beijing to threatening to terminate the VFA. President Duterte even had a few verbal spats with President Obama. Duterte threatened to
I actually
jeopardize
remember this
decades
guy.
of American Philippine
yeah, I actually remember, like, when I was little, I remember seeing him all over the news and everything. Didn't this guy, like, get killed or something?
military cooperation and support. This stump in relations was only temporary, however. There was a softening of his stance when Trump first became president. In the end,
Of course.
however, relations didn't really improve until Bongbong Marcos Jr. became president in 2022. President Marcos worked with the Biden administration to renormalize relations. He met with both Secretary of State Anthony Blinken and VP Kamala Harris in 2022. He also met with President Biden at the 2022 UN General Assembly. In that meeting, both leaders negotiated new investments, food and energy security deals. Marcos also enhanced the EDCA in 2023. This extension of the agreement was a huge deal. You see, it allowed the US military access to even more military sites across the country. This essentially created the largest American presence in the Philippines in over 30 years. President Marcos went even further in 2024. He attended a trilateral summit in Washington alongside President
Marcos
Biden and
from
Japanese
Tripolia.
PM Fumio Kishida.
The camera keeps
During that
freaking
summit,
me out.
they discussed new agreements
so
to preserve
annoying.
security and freedom of navigation in the South China Sea. This entire summit was seen as a great effort to curb Beijing's growing influence and ambitions. Even now, in the current second Trump administration, these ties have continued to strengthen. The aforementioned Hegseth visit and the increased sales of advanced military infrastructure are just two examples of the strengthening partnership. So as we can see, China is clearly not happy with the buddying partnership between the US and the Philippines. It's threatening its position and its interests in the South China Sea. This brings us to the Sino-Filipino disputes more closely. We can highlight the second Thomas Shoal Island of the Spratly Islands. This tiny island falls within the Philippines' 200-mile EEZ. In 1999, the Philippines grounded a ship known as the BRP Sierra Madre. They did this to strengthen their claim on the island. Ever since, the country's Coast Guard has routinely sent monthly supplies to the ship, reinforcing its claim. This area has become known to the Philippines as the West Philippine Sea. At the same time, the Chinese Coast
The
Guard has
West
recently started
Philippine Sea.
harassing the Philippine resupply missions. Starting in 2023, these actions have led to some physical clashes. Dangerous and aggressive tactics like this one only increase the risk of an all-out war. In
Yeah,
relation to
literally.
this dispute, the
Like
U.S.
one
is
day they're
currently
gonna
planning
piss
to
off the
upgrade a
wrong guy,
crucial
he's gonna
Philippine
fire
naval
back,
base.
and then that's
Known
gonna
as
start like a
Naval
chain of
Detachment
events
Oyster
that
Bay,
literally
it is
starts
home to the
World War.
Philippines' Navy patrol ships, gunboats, and resupply assets. Washington plans to send between $1 and $5 million to
We're
that
lucky
base
that
by
these
the
people that
summer.
are in these
The U.S. also
positions
plans to
are, like,
build a
calm
facility to help move
can
24-foot
rationally think,
warships
you
and
know?
store equipment in the
'Cause
base.
shy
They will
is
also
that.
fix the base's boat launch to help accommodate larger ships.
You know how many
see,
times
aside
we've
from the Sierra
avoided,
Madre
like,
resupply
nuclear
missions and the
warfare?
Second Thomas Shoal, Oyster Bay
Because
is
the
the
people in
Philippines'
charge
main
of
base
like
of
hitting the
operations
button,
in the
you know,
South
are
China Sea.
rational enough to like
The
think,
Chinese
oh,
Coast Guard
maybe
has
this is a
also had
mistake.
confrontations
Oh,
with the
maybe it's
Filipinos
like an
around this
error.
bay, such as in
Maybe,
June
you know,
of
maybe
2024.
they accidentally
In
did
this
this.
incident, a Philippine Navy
It was an
SEAL
accident.
lost a finger during a collision with a Chinese boat. So, with this
Dang.
increasing Chinese aggression, relations between both countries are critical. The
tight.
timing has made the U.S.-Philippine partnership
What? Like,
more
losing a
important than
finger,
ever.
dude?
The
I can't
expansion of
play,
the
like,
2014 EDCA will have far-reaching implications. And you see, these implications can go beyond the Philippines' security. They could extend to Taiwan, too. Tensions between the U.S. and China over the fate of the island has risen in recent years. After then-Speaker Nancy Pelosi visited the island in 2022,
Escape the
Beijing
fate.
heavily jacked up its military actions around it. If China ever decided to fully attack and invade Taiwan, the U.S. could use its strategic position in the Philippines to counter the invasion, particularly in the country's northernmost islands, which are the closest to the Asian giant, but also in Luzon. Luzon is the country's largest and most populated island. Crucially, this island has equipped its military facilities to house American troops and assets. The Philippines is now the middle of a critical crossroads between great power rivalry. It is no longer just a tropical frontier for paradisiac tourism. The Philippines is becoming a potential flashpoint in a looming war.
Keep farting.
The U.S. is now back in full force with its Southeast Asian partner. At the same time, China
Nice,
continues to assert
nice.
its dominance in the South China Sea. The stage is set for a high-stakes geopolitical standoff. Whether about the fate of Taiwan or its very own fate, the Philippines will have to balance deterrence with diplomacy. Whether that
Yeah, it's just like with the other, you know, with Japan and everything, you know. The United States can't be doing everything. Like, you guys have to, at the same time, do something. You know, like, we're not, like a big brother doesn't just fight all your battles for you. He helps you fight them, if anything. But we're not going to fight all of them for you. It's like, you guys got to do something, too.
could be achieved remains to be seen. For now, one thing remains clear.
So it all
Manila
depends on how
is
they handle
actively preparing
everything, you
to
know?
face the Asian giant with full support of the United
Yeah.
States. It is no longer a pawn in the larger Indo-Pacific chessboard. It is becoming one of the most important players.
Yeah, honestly, China, man, they're like I said, they're literally just getting their grubby fingers and everything like that. And at a certain point, it's literally gonna be too much for them to handle. Like, I don't know what they got going on over there, but man, I don't know how they can keep up with all this crap. Anyways, this is a pretty short video, but I hope you guys enjoyed it. Hopefully the audio's good on this one. Make sure you leave a like, comment, and subscribe, and check out the stream too. For, you know, always we're making videos, recording live. So stop on in. You know, catch you guys in the next one. Peace.